We call it by different names.
The Fed could opt to raise its benchmark rate by 50 basis points.
Maybe raising interest rates is not enough.
But when we're talking about the Fed and interest rates, we're talking about
the federal funds rate.
The federal funds rate.
Case for a rapid rise in the Fed funds rate seems pretty obvious to some.
Less obvious is how the federal funds rate actually works and how it impacts our interest rates. That's why it's today's Word on the Street. The federal funds rate is the interest rate banks charge each other to borrow money. The Federal Reserve typically requires banks to have a certain amount of cash on hand every night. The reserve requirement is a percentage of the bank's total deposits, and it's often held in an account at the Federal Reserve. Now, a lot of times, lending institutions try to stay as close to the line as possible, and sometimes they dip under. So to meet the reserve that night, a bank will borrow money from another bank that has excess reserves. That's when it's charged the effective federal funds rate.
There is growing pressure on the Federal Reserve to increase interest rates in order to cool down the economy.
The goal of the Fed is to promote a healthy economy. The federal funds rate is one of its tools. When the Fed wants to stimulate the economy, it lowers the bank's short-term borrowing rate, which typically prompts banks to also lower rates they charge on loans to customers. So when COVID hit in 2020, the Fed moved the target rate to near zero, and we saw the lowest 30-year mortgage rates in history later that year. On the flip side, when the economy is too stimulated, the Fed will raise the benchmark rate to try to tamper inflation.
I think there's quite a bit of room to raise interest rates.
And because lending between banks then becomes more expensive, our business with banks gets pricier too. The silver lining here is that the interest rate we earn on various savings accounts also go up. All right, what term do you want to explain next in Word on the Street? Let me know in the comments.